Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today's conversation is going to be around somewhat of a sensitive topic. It is the conversation about abortion. It is such a divisive issue these days, and we are going to talk about it, especially in the context of Robert Kennedy Jr. So a while ago, I actually did make a video on RFK's stance on abortion, and his stance here was pretty much he was leaving it to the woman. Women have complete autonomy. It is their complete decision at their discretion. That's it. That was his position. And now he's kind of changed his mind a bit after he's learned a little bit more, has some more perspective, and just looked at the actual data of what it means to have abortions and have them be legal, especially up until a certain point and so forth. So he has somewhat changed his mind here. He's kind of updated his stance. And I actually made a YouTube community post about this. Some people in the comments are, like this person here said, this is the main reason I can't support RFK. And I want us to talk about that too, because I kind of disagree with that comment, but we'll get into that. Right now, I want us to go ahead and watch his take on abortion. It's almost a 4-minute video. I do want us to get a sense of what he is saying because again, it's a very polarizing issue. It's very divisive. A lot of people take this very personally. A lot of people vote depending on which candidate is actually saying what they want to hear in terms of abortion. So this is a big deal. I don't want to make it sound like it's not. Let's watch it.
Hey, everybody. As you know, abortion has become a notoriously divisive issue in America. And many of my critics have painted me as some kind of extremist, but actually, I support the emerging consensus in this country. It's that abortion should be legal up until a certain number of weeks and restricted thereafter.
So already, I want to give him some mad props over here, just because when it comes to American politics, I think we could all agree that the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and it's just not an effective strategy because, yeah, the squeaky wheel is making a lot of noise, but at the end of the day, if 99% of people want it one way, come on.
This is a consensus because even in the reddest of red states, voters have consistently rejected total abortion bans. And on the other hand, almost no one supports the gruesome late-term abortions except to save the life of the mother. I've been a medical freedom advocate for my entire career, and I fought as hard as anybody in our country for bodily autonomy. I trust a woman's maternal instincts. I used to think that the only time a woman would abort in the third trimester is if the mother's life was at stake, or maybe the baby had some fatal condition. Perhaps it would survive only a few hours or a couple of agonizing days after birth. I don't think a bureaucrat or a judge is better equipped than the baby's own mother to decide what to do in those circumstances. But more recently, I've learned that my assumptions were wrong. Sometimes women abort healthy, viable, late-term fetuses. These cases of purely elective late-term abortions are very upsetting.
I just want to pause it really quick right there, because here you see him straight up say, I learned that I was wrong. And those are some of the hardest words to get someone to say, especially politicians, whenever their life is so extraordinarily public. It is so hard for someone to say, I'm wrong, here's why, here's what I'm going to do to fix it. So in terms of character, I give him a lot of points. It takes guts to say that. I appreciate it. And I think that's what a lot of people want in a presidential candidate.
Once the baby is viable outside the womb, it should have rights and it deserves society's protection. So I support the emerging consensus that abortion should be unrestricted up until a certain point. I believe that point should be when the baby is viable outside the womb. Therefore, I would allow appropriate restrictions on abortion in the final months of pregnancy, just as Roe v. Wade did. That's the principle that will guide my actions as president, whether implemented by Congress or the states or in court. It's the right policy for our country.
So he said it. RFK's main stance on abortion is that he believes that once the baby is viable outside of the womb, that the baby should no longer be able to be aborted by the mother because now the baby has rights. So that is kind of eliminating all late stage abortions. And I get it. That might not make everyone who is watching this video happy because, again, we all know it's a divisive issue. We all know that it's very personal. It's very sensitive. I understand. What I like about what he's saying is I believe at the heart of this, he is trying to help the majority of people on this one particular issue. And I think that's good. His position is not designed to make everyone happy because, first of all, that is impossible. You cannot make everyone happy. And the fact is, there's going to be people on the far right and the far left who are going to be unhappy here. But I think his goal here is to satisfy that large majority in the middle, the independents, the people who aren't extremists, the people who do believe that we need to be more united than divided. Do I agree with everything he's saying? Not necessarily, but I agree with his perspective. And for the record, I'm not sure if I agree necessarily with President Trump's views on abortion or with President Biden's view on abortion. And when you look at someone like President Trump and his views, his view is that he overturned Roe v. Wade and now he returned the decision back to the states. You know, some people say that's good. Other people didn't necessarily agree with that. And then on the polar opposite end, you have Joe Biden, where he just wants to make abortion something that is accessible nationwide. And again, a lot of people aren't happy there. So when you look at RFK's perspective here, I just want everyone to acknowledge that there is no presidential candidate who is saying what everyone wants to hear. Because turns out the American people are just divided. We see the world differently. We all share different perspectives. We all come from a different worldview. That is fine. I believe RFK recognizes it, and I believe that's why his position is the way that it is. And if you've liked what he said so far, I think you're going to really enjoy the next part of this video because it really does get better. And I haven't seen Joe Biden talk about this, and I haven't seen President Trump talk about this, so check this out.
But there's more to it than that. The biggest reason, as it turns out, according to the studies, is affordability. Almost 3/4 of women cite economic reasons to explain why they choose to abort a pregnancy. So we've developed a policy that we call more choices, more life. We can reduce abortion across the board dramatically by supporting motherhood, by supporting parents.
Come on. More choices, more life. Now, that actually resembles his previous stance in his last video where he talks about how he always wants people to choose life because he believes in a life and he just is so heartbroken whenever an abortion is made. And so I believe this policy is great because it was forged with the idea in mind that if you give people more choices, you actually empower people to experience more life through pregnancy. So I think that's great. Please tell me what you think about that in the comments, but let's keep going.
Supporting families. Soon we'll unveil our plan for universally affordable child care, which will cap child care expenses at 10% for most families. And we will support women in need so that abortion isn't their only choice. As I said, abortion has been an incredibly divisive issue, but I don't think it has to be. I believe that we can reduce abortions in America by choice and not by force. And that's something most of us can agree on. So let's stop fighting about it and actually get this done. And let's step outside of the culture war trap and take on the big issues like the forever wars, the chronic disease epidemic, inflation, government corruption, and dishonesty that are destroying our country.
So what I think is going to be interesting about this video in particular is the comments section, because here we have RFK talking about how he believes that abortion doesn't have to be a divisive issue, but I believe there's probably going to be some discussion happening in the comments, and I do want to say that I encourage that. I want people to speak their mind. I want this place to be a public forum. I think that's good. I think we should be able to communicate and have meaningful conversations. I just hope that those conversations in the comments, I hope we're not attacking people, but I hope we're genuinely listening and being able to share our perspective. Now, there were a couple comments on my last community post where I pretty much took a screen grab of his post on Twitter, and someone said, refreshing, imagine a president willing to accept the nuance of issues and develop a stance that acknowledges all sides without claiming to be right and others wrong. We desperately need this man in office. Enough of this red versus blue. I love this comment. I think it is so well put. I've been saying the world is not black and white. Why should politics be? And I hate so much of what the media represents, because so much of the media just pins Americans up against each other. They pin ideologies against each other. And I think it is just so toxic, because honestly, I believe that people like me and you, even though we are so radically different, I believe we have more in common than the media wants us to believe we do. I believe someone like RFK just acts like a perfect bridge between these worlds. I believe someone like RFK acts like a bridge between both of these worlds. And I think that's great. Someone else commented RFK Jr. 2024. Someone said brainworm, whatever. Someone said something is either right or wrong. The date on the calendar doesn't matter. I wanted to talk about this comment down here. This person says, this is the main reason I can't support RFK. Be bold and take a stance instead of catering to both sides. You either believe it's wrong or it's don't. This makes it clear that he thinks it's okay. That is absolutely not true. If you were to go ahead and watch this video that was posted on PBS NewsHour where he talks about abortion, you could get a clear understanding of what his perspective was before, and even then you could see some of his conviction there. And I think the fact is, abortion is a difficult conversation, and people like this person in the comments, they're trying to make it seem like it's a black and white issue. And what I'm thinking about is, whenever Roe v. Wade was turned, I remember having a conversation with one of my friends because, I'm a deep person of faith. I love Jesus. I love the church. And this conversation has always made me a bit curious, because I know what scripture says. I have such a value on human life. And I agree with RFK whenever he talks about he believes that every abortion is a tragedy. That's how I view it. But at the end of the day, we are talking about politics, and we are talking about the American people, and we are talking about people across different religions, different relationships, and different world views. And I think we need to understand that my perspective might not be your perspective, and that's fine. That's why it's my perspective, and that's why yours is yours. But I do think we need to embrace that. And seeing a comment like someone saying it's either wrong or it's not, the fact is there is some of a gray area. And especially whenever you're talking about a mass amount of people, there might be some gray areas. And hey, I'm not saying that you have gray areas on your perspective. I'm not even saying that I have gray areas in my perspective. To me, things are clear. But I'm saying whenever it's a mass amount of people like the United States of America, where you're dealing with over 300 million lives, people aren't going to see eye to eye. So whenever you're constructing policy, chances are there's going to be some gray areas, because not everyone's going to be like me, and not everyone's going to be like you, and there's just going to be an extraordinary amount of differences across the board. And I think whenever you're someone like a politician and you're crafting all of these things, you need to account for those variable changes. I know we talked about a lot of things. I'm so excited to hear what your perspective is in the comments. Let me know what you think about his stance on abortion. Let me know what you think about President Trump's, President Biden's stance, and let me know how you think all of these compare. And if you want to share your personal experience here, I would love to hear about it. I would love to read it. I love going through the comments on these videos. They really mean the world to me, especially whenever there is some honest discussion going there. I think it is so incredible and just a really beautiful thing to experience. And I just want to thank you so much for letting me experience this alongside everyone. So please let me know what your thoughts are, your perspective is in the comments. I would love that. Let's keep the conversation going there. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It means the world to me. I love having these conversations, and I especially love having these conversations with you all. So thank you so much, and I will see you next time. Have a good day.